that sort of, you know, hey, we're here to stop the early game and then snowball it sort of style. But yeah, away from schedule, we are here into game one, or the pick ban for game one, and no surprises, ICGL gets his Rengar moved away from him yet.
You can't allow it through. It's not fair, it's not balanced, and it's just very annoying to play against. The Gwen, of course, you mentioned it was strong in the hands of some players in this league already. That one is going to be removed. Caitlyn, we've seen being taken away across the regions. The Jinx might also find the same format, but it's the Karma, actually, that a couple of people have been talking about being taken away.
Yeah, okay. Interesting that we see the Karma. I feel like in general, though, you do typically see, you either see one of two things in ban phases, it feels like. You either see these heavy skewed bot side matchups, which bans, which for some reason London United are very terrified of Merbs and Blue. We'll see if they end up taking away the Jinx from Merbs, because I will say that was one of the things from Munster's draft on Tuesday, which was definitely one of the scary aspects. It was kind of Chimera on the Corki, and then also Merbs as that sort of backup damage on the Jinx was one of the threatening points. But yeah, you either see these like heavy bans towards the bottom side, or it's just all about the junglers plus the solo laners, and then everything else on the bottom side gets left up. It feels like these drafts don't, you know, sort of sit in the middle ever. But yes, Xin Zhao will be locked in for Gaboosh here for Munster Rugby, and then there you go, there's that Jinx takeaway which we spoke about. And London United, they can just match the jungle here if they don't want to show their cards, and they will for Dunlosi, picking up his Trundle, something he's very comfortable on historically, and now Munster can kind of do the same thing, right? Take their AD. There's no real like sort of threat in doing that now, and maybe you take a priority support, or maybe you take a solo laner. It's kind of up to you. You've got loads of options here.
They're going to be grabbing that fresh in response to the Trundle and the Jinx. Surprised to not see the... Ooh, actually. Okay, fresh Aphelios down on the bot side. That's pretty spicy.
Yeah, it can be. Of course, fresh Aphelios, when it's up over the last year, or maybe the back half of Season 11, it tended to be locked in quite frequently. So we will see that combination in the bottom side for Munster. Definitely, I feel like Jinx can have a really strong time into that lane, though. So I'm curious to see what the support matchup will be. I'd imagine Divinus just goes Nautilus, if anything. Just because, one, he's comfortable on the champion. Two, decent lane matchup into the Thresh. And, of course, you can always just depth charge the person that's about to take the Lantern. And you'll just bring the depth charge into the team, potentially. So, very strong matchup there for London United in the bot side, I have to feel. And now they can go about removing whatever they want to, really. When both the teams are matching what they've locked in, this is kind of where things get a little bit awkward, because now it's like, okay, do we want to pick, you know, our mid laner? Well, then we're probably going to ban two mids. Are we not necessarily sure? Then maybe we ban away a mid and a top. And it's going to be the same thing for Munster here. So they're just going to be looking at target bans most likely. And here you go, speaking of target bans, it doesn't get much more target than Fiora towards ICGL.
Yeah, ICGL's got a couple of champions where on paper you're like, huh, that's a bit weird, but you see it exactly once, you're like, oh, I understand this, get rid of Rengar in the next 20 games against them.
Yeah, I feel like if they're going to go down the target ban route, then the next ban is probably Jax, if I had to wager a guess. But yeah, there you go. There goes Chimera's LeBlanc. At the moment, if Munster are going to be looking to play a 2v2 mid, it's going to be a little bit difficult just because LeBlanc's gone. They could maybe look at something like the Lissandra, depending on whether or not London United lock in their mid laner here on R4. Actually, Corki going to be removed away. I actually don't mind this from Munster, because it kind of just says, okay, we're not going to give you the double scaling aspect of Jinx plus that hyper scaling Corki as well, because we know we're not going to have access to that priority pick if you want it. And now if Kusei does go down the line of, you know, maybe he wants to lock in, I always associate Kusei with Zoe for some reason. Even though I didn't watch too much UKL, Will, maybe you can correct me on this.
I mean,
Kusei was in the league.
He could have seen some. Syndra, of course, the staple standard pick. I was surprised that the Diana Yasuo has been completely ignored going through this draft, to be honest.
Yeah, it varies in priority team to team, right? I think from what I know of Munster, I'm pretty sure they could have pulled it out in this game if they really felt like it. Obviously wanted to go down the Xin Zhao opener instead. Anivia being hovered, I think for Chimera, obviously he is the very standard Anivia player. I'm not sure how it would be in this game. There's not too much mobility. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up doing something that punishes mobility at the very least, and Orion certainly does that indeed. Now towards Stumpy, I think you probably want a bit of a front line here, another front liner to round out your comp, whether it's something like Ornn, which could really be an annoyance to the back line of something that's a mobile like Jinx and Syndra, or the Gragas. I think either option's probably very good for Stumpy here.
I was looking at the order thinking someone's got to be on duty. It's going to be Gragas, though, going over to Munster Rugby Gaming. Of course, topside still yet to be decided. Of course, the Trundle could go up there potentially, but I think that's pretty unlikely.
Yeah, pretty unlikely. It can happen, but It's not something we see too frequently in pro play. And now I'm just kind of I'm wondering what Icy Gale's gonna pick. You know, R5 Icy Gale. He knows he's into a tank top most likely in the Gragas. He's that kind of guy that will pull out those wacky counter picks. So we're not gonna get anything too spicy in particular. It's gonna be the Camille, which in this lane I feel like maybe Gragas bullies around in the first couple of levels, but eventually just kind of gets a foothold in the lane, gets that scaling aspect going, and she really takes hold of the game.
I mean, stylistically, with the Fiora being banned, the Rengar as well, the Camille fits into that very strong duelist, can go split push situation that Icegale loves to play around. So it makes sense whether it will be okay in the laning phase. Will Stumpy and Gaboesh go in and cause issues early? That's a question that's got to be answered. But looking over these two compositions, disappointingly, there's not too much to write home about in terms of mad spice, as people say.
Yeah, sure, mad spice, not too much there. I think Stumpy's on a comfort champion at best. I mean, it's mostly, to me, I'm looking at the bot lanes for both of these teams. I think that's going to be the most crucial part inside of this game. You've got the hyperscaling Felios, you've got the hyperscaling Jinx. Which one of these teams is going to be able to put the most consistent resources and time into making sure that they are bridged into the late game? Because right now I'm looking at London United's draft and I'm saying they've got they've got the Trundle that should be beating out the Xin Zhao and the Orianna in the early stages. So hopefully that does mean they get to snowball down towards the bottom side.
And this is what I was going to ask you, just kind of the final question from me going into this game is the jungle matchup. I love me a good jungle matchup question before we go into the League of Legends. Trundle, talk me through it, because we all know what Xin Zhao does by now. We've seen it a lot. It's you dive in, you ult, the backline's not allowed to do anything, the team fight's broken up. Congrats. What's Trundle bringing to the table here?
I mean, I think Trundle here, he's bringing a lot of interruption via the pillar, especially in the early stages of the game where there's not really too much mobility around the bottom side or the mid lane. I think it's going to be a very strong tool to actually work around, where effectively Trundle kind of walks into a lane, he sets down the pillar, and then it's easy setup for whether it's Divinus on the Nautilus or whether it's a Scatter the Weak to follow up. And in most cases, just showing face might just blow flashes, honestly. And amongst the tanks, obviously in the later stages of the game, you get to effectively just, strip away the resists and ensure that these frontliners aren't so tanky.
Yeah, especially when you've got the Gragas. The front line is really not that spicy coming through from Munster Rugby Gaming, though. They haven't got these massive tanks outside of that Gragas. But hey, if there's only one target, you know exactly where that ultimate is going to be going in, where the drain's going to be, and the rest of the team is going to have a very, very rough time. Predictions, then. We don't have an official kind of prediction league.
Predictions. Yeah, no.
Thank the Lord, because Div 1 has been a disaster.
Yeah, for most people, right? I feel like I've been pretty okay. I've been on the ball for most of my predictions. I don't count the M&M ones because I'm actually cursing the enemy team.
You're cursing enemy teams in order to...
so anytime, just for the record, and I'll put it on the record now, anytime I'm actually voting against M&M, I'm actually voting for M&M. But it's the curse. So I've actually not lost too many points there, at least mentally. They're going to be like, oh, but you're voting against them and they're winning. So... But yeah, predictions here. I mean, I think pre-draft, I probably would have said Munster coming into this one. I think they just really had to iron out some of their mid-game performances. I think Stumpy really just got outlaned by Lundorf, and Lundorf ran away with the lead that he kind of came ahead with. And I just think the draft wasn't really a strong enough draft to punish something like a Gwen on the side lane. Not saying the draft itself was bad, just the Gwen just really, really takes apart the draft on the side lane in the late stages. But yeah, pre-draft, I would have said Munster. I think honestly, this one I'm maybe leading a little more into what London has. I will say though, I think if we start to sort of go past that 30-ish minute mark, 35-ish minute mark, then I think London United's Munster Rugby Gaming's comp actually kind of just plays itself. You got Felios, you got Thresh, you got Orianna, you got Xin Zhao, and then you've got the Gragas for peel or engage, or that's just what the champion does everything in that regard. Very, very flexible. So I feel like if Munster can just sort of stay there, they don't have to push a crazy lead, and they just sort of let the game play itself and they don't fall behind, then their comp just kind of plays itself into what London have.
And that's interesting because the London composition, maybe it's a very tad bit more difficult, but I wouldn't say it's a hard to play draft particularly.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not a hard draft in my eyes to pilot either. I just feel like some of the how do I word this? The scaling ceilings are a little bit higher for Munster. As we are here into game 1, Dunlosi running the lethal tempo. I like to see that. I feel like a lot of Trundles still sort of floating around on the PTA, but I'm telling you, lethal tempo, you get to go the Q max now with all of the attack speed you get from that rune. It makes you pretty hard to duel. And honestly, Dunlosi, I feel like can kind of just do whatever he wants in the early stages with this keystone, as he probably knows, hence why he's taken it. But other than that, not looking at anything too crazy, though. Merbs has actually found himself with PTA on Aphelios, which is something we don't see too commonly.
Pretty interesting. We'll have to see if he's going to be able to get those early auto attacks to put the pressure down. But something interesting to note, Viperoon's fun interaction. I guarantee you Dunlossie is going to deny Dividus at least one engage with his pillar. Because he's just going to get blocked off, isn't he?
Alright, but what if Dunlossie pillars somebody that Divinus hits and actually saves the person Divinus hits? How about that?
I mean, it could happen, potentially. Just moving around the map right now, the junglers both on their second buffs. I'm just going to be clearing those out. I said bot lane's going to be the one that is maybe the difference maker in the earlier stages. Mid lane as well, especially for Dunlossie to get involved around that Orianna. With Trundle and Xin, is it a case of early ganks? Is it a case of early invades? What are we kind of keeping our eyes open for?
I think it's really going to be on the lane states, which will dictate that. Typically, you can kind of just default the answer to, yeah, well, they're both early ganking junglers, so naturally they're going to be inside the lanes. Yes, that is true. But what the bigger indicator will be is what's happening inside the lanes and what's going to prime these junglers to actually make certain decisions more often than not. For example, bottom side, there was a lot of priority here for London United. Dunlossie says, okay, I'm going to go and invade, try and catch Gaboosh on his red buff of Gaboosh. Obviously with this very sort of starting on red, then going back to his top side to path back down to bot side clear, maybe in an attempt to avoid this potential invade. Dunlossie, I'm not sure if he's going to get caught out on the Raptor camp here or walked in on. He is in the bush, so he's going to know Gaboosh is coming, so let's see how this one goes.
Okay, it's going to be a fight in the jungle early doors. Will this lethal tempo make the difference? Gaboosh squeezes past the pillar and will be able to move out for now. Both mid laners moving on through. Didn't notice exactly which one of the two junglers got that camp. I believe Gabwesh might have... Did Dunlossie smite it away?
I think Dunlossie did smite it away.
It's a success then, isn't it?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a success. Didn't want to overcommit Dunlossie just because he knew Chimera could add a little bit of extra damage, but honestly, Lethal Temple Trundle man, he could have smited that camp and got a little bit of extra HP, kept him moving forward with a little more harass, but knows when to call a play to its end as both these junglers again meeting.
Ooh, gonna be a lot of action here. Nice hook down coming through. KZ has to flash away and it will be low. There's first blood going over to Munster Rugby Gaming and they've caught Divinus as well. He's looking for a way out but cannot find one. There's a lot of damage coming on through and Gabwesh picks up his first of the game. Munster Rugby Gaming make the play happen in the bot side.
Yeah, they make the play happen, but it's London United that also opt into it. They had the vision in the tri-bush to know the Gaboosh was actually here as well to match this 3v3. So it's them that willingly go for it and lose out KZ, both for summoners, and dies. And he's going to miss a pretty sizable wave down on the bottom side as well. And so that's a really, really costly sort of fight to actually opt into here for London. And just off the back of one gank, they're down over 1,000 gold, give or take. So Munster, really big result there for them. And let's see now how Gaboosh actually runs away with this potential first blood. And Gank has got himself the Iron Spike Whip, so it's going to clear up his clear speed tremendously as Icy Girl is just harassing Stumpy to no end.
Stumpy is giving as good as he's getting at the moment, at least in the mid lane. Flash is being blown, but Chimera won't be in too much trouble. As you said, if Trundle goes mid, they might just have to give the respect and burn those summoners.
Yeah, and now it means that all Dunlossie really has to do is just return back to the mid lane in a couple minutes time whenever he feels like he's got the window. As I really love this from Blue, opening out onto the top side of the map. It's not something we often see supports do. We've definitely seen a bit of a weird meta from solo queue at the very least, where supports are kind of just randomly camping top. That is a little bit strange, but supports in general on your first reset, just open through mid. Walk towards the mid lane before you walk back down to the bottom side.
Gabwesh, what's going on? The dive's gone completely wrong, and Icy Gale doesn't follow through.
I'm not too sure what that was. I think Gaboosh just wanted to try and harass Icy Gale so that he couldn't freeze the lane. That's what I'm reading off of that audacious charge, because it was certainly audacious. And then yeah, Icy Gale just immediately punished with the jump there. Just gets him stunned up underneath the tower, takes 2 tower shots. It's just the easy picking. And now he has the freeze regardless, actually. Yeah, I think that's it. They're not necessarily trying to dive. They're just... I think he's just trying to harass him. Definitely a head scratcher moment.
Yeah.
There.
I mean,
I'm sure Stumpy's going to be having words with him about after the game.
It was an interesting decision. Stumpy didn't have the mana to follow through and just was not there in range to get involved. But Gabush on the top side, and now we're going to see him. Divinus looking for the hook, won't be able to find it. London United trying to play off some of this momentum they might have just been handed in the top side, and they're going to look to start up the Dragon. Donlossi taking a bite out of it, and doesn't look like it's going to be too much of a contest from Munster Rugby Gaming.
Nope, Gabush is on the top side. Looks like London United will have bottom side priority, and for now, Kusei, even if he doesn't have mid lane priority, you can always put down a load of pressure onto Chimera, so he should be fine in that regard. Gabush just doesn't really want to show it. It's like angling, maybe that he wants to go and take away this red buff in sort of retaliation, but Dunlossi, it looks like he's actually going to path straight to it. So they could run into each other here. No, he's going to turn around to his wolves. Okay, so going to lose this red. Just a simple cross map here for Gabush. Nothing more, nothing less. He'll at least take away something for losing this Infernal Dragon. London United get that one pretty much cleanly, or as cleanly as you could ask for. And for now, it looks like as well it's going to be Chemtech or Hextech Dragon, which is spawning next.
It's Hextech.
Hextech, got it here, nice. So it will be one or the other. Now, Chimera's got first move here into this invade, so Dunlossi might have to yield. Plus, Dunlossi's still level 5, so I don't think this is a skirmish they can necessarily opt into, and Stumpy also has first move.
Nice stuff coming through. Donlossi's thinking about it, but knows this isn't his domain anymore.
No,
More back away.
He got the smite,
You
actually.
got smite on the big one.
Yeah,
Man, I cannot see smite. This is why I shouldn't play jungle, because my smite vision is everywhere. But I can see in the jungle, like Abwesh has gone up and has started up on the Rift Herald at the 8-minute spawn time, and that's going to be pretty big if they can grab this one for free.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you always want to take those heralds for those dragons in the early stages. In my opinion, they always, if used correctly, should propel you to slightly bigger leads more often than not. And this is a really good job from Chimera here to just consistently harass Dunlossi out of the jungle. As Divinus, oh. That's good.
I feel like there was some game design going on there, probably.
It doesn't look. I think Baloo just flashed on KZ's face.
Oh.
Yeah, has the Hex Flash cooldown just coming back up, so I believe that's what it was. Mobility boots as well to catch up even quicker, and now this pressure being snowballed everywhere. Dunlossi pushed out the bottom side because of the solo kill, or the 2v1 kill, rather, Merbs and Blue found onto KZ. They push Dunlossi out of the bottom side jungle as well, which means if Gabush wants to and the lane states are there and kept stable, Gabush can just run straight to this blue buff. If they want to keep the pressure high, well, I feel like a reset for now, probably the more stable and safer call. As, yeah, let's just see, just on a control ward. Flash Flay.
Yeah, Flash Play. Depth Center, I imagine, will have also come. Oh, it's missed out, but then the damage comes through.
Yeah, the damage is here because Merbs obviously has the red-white, and unfortunately for KZ, his Flash mere moments away from coming up, so couldn't at least try to get some safe distance away, as Stumpy really being bullied up here in the top side. 20 CS down. Icy Gale really having a fun time up here off this red side pick. And that's always going to be something to track over the course of the split. Whenever London United have that red side, one, how frequently they give counter pick to Icy Gale, but two, what kind of picks he pulls out to, you know, sort of throw a spanner in the works for the enemy team. Something like Camille here in this game, Camille will eventually take over the side lane. It's something we didn't really touch on coming into this game. Camille won't really be able to be answered by Munster Rugby. If you're to really ask me, eventually she's just going to be taking massive chunks of damage out of Stumpy. To the point where Stumpy can only really hold for maybe a wave and a half, 2 waves at a time before he has to go back. Just because of how much true damage is coming out. Now a lot of pressure. KZ and Divinus both respecting this. I mean, if this gank works, it'll be full tower. But even the pressure alone, really lovely stuff from Munster. It maybe means that they don't even have to drop the Herald. If they so wish, Merbs can just sit here, push the tower, and really good fake from Merbs, standing really, really far up. And it just entirely makes London United yield the tower. So they've still got the Herald. They're still going to get this tower, and that probably means if Munster so wish, they can just go and drop this Herald in the mid lane.
Yeah, they can take it somewhere else, get the value from it, because they really don't need to use it. But you can already see, look at KZ, he's standing under his inner tower.
Because he doesn't know.
And it's just like, yeah, this is going to go down.
there's even a missing ping at the tier 2. They're wondering, are they just sitting at the blue buff bush? Like, kind of just waiting for us to walk in. Like, what's going on? A lot of pressure being thrown down. And this is something that I definitely like to see from Munster on their Tuesday game. Their early game was honestly quite stellar too. I quite enjoyed watching Gaboosh on that Viego pull things together as Shockwave comes through, and that's a Hex Flash.
Kuse's in a lot of trouble. I don't think he's getting out of this one. Chimera picks up the kill.
Yeah, really nice Shockwave. Honestly, even from the spectator POV, it looked like that Shockwave was maybe gonna whiff, to be honest with you. So real nice there, just to connect onto the angles. They find that kill onto Kuse, and now keep our eyes on where Gaboosh is, because that Herald is running out. It's got about 30 seconds or so. So pathing towards the mid lane, looks like that will be the choice. Chimera's teleported back to the mid lane as well, so expect the numbers to be funneled into the mid lane, and look at this, pretty much a 5-man open almost from Munster Rugby Gaming into the mid lane. They want to potentially get this Herald down and really force the issue as Divinus face checks.
Oh, gonna be called out. Gets a very nice hook off onto the terrain, but I don't think it's gonna save him. The damage coming from Mervs is pretty big. He gets the snipe down for the kill as Gabuesh following through onto Kuse, wants to cut down Syndra as well. Really nice play from Stumpy. Keep us CC'd up. Nice amount of damage coming through from the pushback, but Kuse's moving away. The kebab is finished though as Gabush picks up the kill.
Yo, Syndra's been on a diet to squeeze through that. That pillar in a rock place, or a hard place rather. I've never seen a champion squeeze through a spot where a pillar in a wall is like that. That was kind of crazy. As there you go, Dunlosi secures the red buff. Gaboosh no smite, so we'll get that one as Chimera.
I don't know. That's why scale.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know.
Yeah, Icy Gale, he's been having a good time, but you can kind of see he's trying to force the issue himself in that in essence. Has the Divine Thunder. I think maybe had 1 or 2 long swords, not necessarily 3 on that time around. And just looking for the shutdown onto Chimera, you know, if he can get that kill, then maybe it snowballs him a little further ahead. You never really know, as let's see what this dragon will be. It'll be a cloud, so not the most oppressive soul in the world. Still certainly stats that are going to be very much welcome. Now, for London United, I mean, sat 5k down at not even 15 minutes. It is a pretty big hole to try and climb out of, admittedly, but definitely feel like they do have a couple of avenues to maybe play through. I think definitely Icy Gale is who they have to look towards right now. Just kind of chuck numbers to wherever Icy Gale is, even if you end up losing a lot, as long as you're kind of trading back, right? I think that's the most you could really ask for, and especially once those objective bounties kick in, which they should be relatively soon. Then of course those cross maps can become a little more profitable to yourselves.
But it's a good amount of gold in the lead for Icy Gale in that top side, but the rest of the map is just a little bit disastrous, and it might be a bad time for Dunlossie as well. So many members from Munster Rugby, they're making it look easy at this stage.
Yeah, and this is just the kind of freedom you get once that mid-tier 1 is down, and they're proxying the wave. Kuse, buddy.
There's just nowhere to go. Tried the recall and had to cancel it, and just gonna have to hold off as much as he can. What's he got in his locker? Absolutely nothing. Chimera throws the ult down for the kill, and it's just moved from set piece to set piece, making it work for Munster.
Yep, absolutely. Icy Gale going to be matched here by Stumpy. Eventually, should actually get this tap. What?
Let's move on from that. Icy Gale chasing on forward onto Stumpy, who is getting cut pretty low. Icy Gale not going to dive the tower, but imagine how good that would have been if Stumpy had his ult right there.
My brain's still processing. Sorry, I just...
I know. I don't know what the logic was. There wasn't a wave. Like...
If there is one thing I will say is, Stumpy 2 games in a row, not particularly having the best individual performance. First into Lundorf, then into Ice Gale. I mean, admittedly, 2 very strong AD carries, top laners.
Yeah.
Lundorf and Ice Gale. I don't think you would be sneered at for saying, you know, maybe in the top 4, like almost pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
Inside of this league. But nonetheless, Stumpy really not having a great time. He has been R5'd. I'm pretty sure he has been counterpicked both games, but 40 CS down. Whatever that cask was.
This wasn't close to anything.
Okay, moving on. Munster have firm control of this game. I am still surprised that objective bounties just haven't kicked in yet. Quite frankly, I'm really wondering what's stopping them, or what the primer is to have them activate, because this is a pretty monstrous lead for 16 minutes into the game, and I've certainly seen objective bounties kick up for a lot less than what we have right now.
Whether there's a time component potentially, but London United just gonna try and force those bounties even further, pushing forward before they can grab them. But Munster Rugby Gaming not interested in ceding any territory right now, and just gonna defend that mid lane tower. Chimera up in top side, up against Kusei, who it was a quiet-ish early game in the mid lane, but of course when you're at a mobile mage, the team losing makes it look pretty bad. And there you go, Jamada. The bounties are now on the map.
It was exactly at 17 minutes. I'm gonna have to look into it. Color cost, by the way. I'm not entirely sure if that is actually just as early as they can be activated, but I feel like I've seen them kick up earlier than 17 minutes. Once or twice, just because solo queue games can be rough.
Well, we're going to have a fight coming through here, and it could be pretty rough for Baloo. He's in there on his own, puts on the box, but members are coming in to support him now. Kusei gets the first kill of the fight as things continue onward. KZ looking to throw rockets, but can't find another kill. As it's just going to be a 1-0. London United stopped the charge onto their inhibitor tower. And yeah, it's a pick, but it didn't earn them too much, but a little bit of reprieve.
Yeah, a little bit of reprieve. Maybe Munster, they go on to try and get that second charge if they still have all 5 members. At best for London United there, so that's probably all they're gonna get in terms of breathing room. London United really still definitely struggling to find any kind of foothold in this game, and again I think it's really mostly on this man here on your screen, Icygale. Just try and send numbers up towards wherever he is. Just play around him for now. If you give up these Cloud Dragons, it doesn't really matter, right? They're not Infernals, they're not Mountains. You're not, potentially giving up an Ocean Soul or anything like that, or God forbid a Chemtech Soul whilst they're still active today. Just send numbers through, and I like that they're doing just that Kusei and Icygale at least for now together. Actually both have double TP as well, and even if Munster, they just like full send it as a five man towards, both the mid lane or the bottom side, you don't really care for now. To be totally honest with you, and now somebody is going to have to go and respond to Icygale if he decides to stay up on the top side, and it looks like that will be Stumpy. Might actually find him on Gromp.
He's gonna try and look for him. He's in the neighborhood, but Icygale's just like, you cannot come here alone, mate. You can't stop me solo. And Stumpy just throwing a cast behind him to make sure that there's no chase in the mid lane. Munster Rugby Gaming keeping the pressure on, grab themselves an inner, can't find the death sentence. The ult lands though, and Lossi in a heap of trouble, flashing over the wall to freedom. But it's going to be followed up on that. That's a lot of damage coming onto Baloo though, puts up the box, birds on the side, needs to get some peel, but the damage is disgusting. No one falls this time around. London United looking like they kind of want to press the issue, but in the end decide against.
Yeah, it really does look like they wanted to. I think if they wanted to try and run down Munster here, they had to teleport onto that ward from Icygale behind the wolf pit. But I think he was still kind of in vision of Stumpy, so maybe didn't want to risk getting body slam if the teleport got sniffed out in time. So there won't be any punish for that. What felt like a little bit of an overstep from Munster, but given the lead, you can certainly understand the mentality of stepping so far forward and trying to punish London for being outside of their base 20 minutes into the game.
Let's do the classic 20 minutes into the game thing. Baron has spawned,
Sure.
It's got a bounty on it, but what do London United need to be looking at right now? What's their way back into this game? Because 5k gold down here, it's not looking too great for them. What do we figure? Actually, we're going to have to hold that point. There's going to be a fight kicking right off. Gabwash in a heap of trouble. Baloo needs to be careful. Kusei gets taken mad low and gets sniped out. Icygale teleports in, but this time cannot do anything as Munster Rugby pick up a kill and move towards the worm.
Yeah, I'd like a replay of that pick because we just saw a really funny interaction. Kusei got dragged entirely over the wall by Thresh. Very rare you see that happen over those thin walls by Kanaka, and forced the flash basically back to the exact same point where he got hooked. Still able to get caught out here as it's going to be a pick onto Dunlosi.
Nice. Stumpy catches him out on the other side, and there's just nowhere out for Trundle. Munster Rugby peeled off the Baron, so we'll have to restart it. And now, there's no jungler, no mid lane.
No jungler, no mid lane, not free Baron for Munster. And this is the kind of clinical gameplay we had to see versus their opponents on Tuesday. Didn't really get that from them this time around, though. A lot more, and we spoke about the scaling ceiling of this team in comparison to London United, certainly much higher than theirs. So Munster pretty much in cruise control now for the time being. They're not really under too much pressure. There's no, Cassidy in the game, and yeah, just get a look at this death sentence, because it does happen from time to time, but even in situations like this, it doesn't feel like it happens very often. He's just at the exact perfect distance where this hook comes out. First drag, cool, still on that side of the wall. Second drag, boom, you're on the side with me now. And at that point, the flash only brings him back to exactly where he was. Still in range of all the damage, and he even brings KZ into a little bit of fire as well, unfortunately. Very nice death sentence from Balut. But also a very cool interaction we don't get to see too often. Dragged over the wall by that death sentence too.
Yeah, called out and taken out. Now Munster Rugby Gaming have themselves the Baron buff. Only one tower standing outside the base, which is kind of the barometer of what is a successful Baron. If you can remove everything outside of inhibitor towers, you're usually having a pretty good time. Munster Rugby so far ahead, they might want a bit more, and that's going to start with catching Dunlossie. No way he should be out that far, and another punish coming through from the Irish team.
Yep, not too sure what was going on there from Dunlossie. Felt like out in no man's land, Icy Gale doing his damnedest wherever he can, but his team's just falling around him on every lane he can think of. Kusei gets picked off, I imagine, from a death sentence. It looks like Chimera used a shockwave this time around with a flash to catch out the London United mid laner. And this should just be the bottom side inhibitor, as Ice Gale's even going to get his base interrupted by Stumpy, though Stumpy could die, honestly, for it.
Don't know if he's got the facilities to fight right now, but held on to his ult very nicely, and Stumpy waddling away, but Ice Gale following through, and he's not interested in letting Gragas leave. That'll be the solo kill with Vmon in the base. It's collapsing around London United. They lose another as Merb's sniping, putting the damage down. And they haven't got that much of a wave, but they've got one cannon. Do be careful, but another death sentence lands onto Dunlossie, and once again, Trundle caught out. Once again, Kusei goes down. Once again, London United lose a team fight. Icy Gale can do nothing to deny the triple. Nice death sentence as Merbs falls, looking for the Quadra. It will be picked up by his teammates over his corpse. And just like that, Munster Rugby Gaming will grab their first win of the 2022 Division 2 NLC. London United back to the drawing board.
Yeah, back to the drawing board. Certainly a disappointing week to go 0-2. But I think this game is definitely about Munster Rugby Gaming being the more clinical of the two teams. There goes Chimera's KD8. As Divinus drags him onto the fountain one last time before that Nexus explodes. 1-1 for Munster out of this week. Definitely something they'll be, I won't say necessarily, happy about, but certainly maybe disappointed themselves for dropping that first game. Could have been walking out of it 2-0 this week. But honestly, a much better performance. And again, it at least shows, between Tuesday and today, they worked on their issues a little bit. And definitely a lot less mistakes coming out post that sort of 18-minute mark, 15-minute mark, where, you pick up that second Herald, give or take, and you start to actually access those side lanes for dives and such.
Absolutely. Early game was still clinical, it was still very good, but they then transitioned that into momentum, into a win, rather than sputtering out and making those mistakes. But of course, we've had our say. We're going to jump to a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be speaking to both of these teams about their thoughts of today and of week one generally, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.